Shalom, shalom. What's going on, guys? Long time no see or hear from, huh? And I'm going to just tell you guys a little bit about my absence before I get into my talking points about the title of the video. Are Keke Palmer, are the standard Keke Palmer talking points right for you? But I was absent and really kind of going back and forth about even getting back on social media creating content, even though I really do have a passion for media. I, love all forms of media, news, articles, all that kind of stuff. And just the idea of doing it in video form is just really fascinating to me. I think it's interesting to be able to disseminate your views out to everyone and just get feedback and, the whole process. I just love it. But what I didn't love is the toxic content that accompanies a lot of times what you're doing. And I kind of just had this thing where I didn't want to get out there and get caught back up in that cycle. And I was recently watching a Brene Brown video, and she was talking about daring greatly and braving the wilderness. And so I decided to get a copy of that book and start listening to it now, actually, Braving the Wilderness. And I was thinking about the whole concept of the wilderness in a form of social media that, you're not going to do anything that's not going to get criticized. And I think that's what I just had to come to terms with, the avoidance, because of, avoiding the idea of failure, avoiding the idea of criticism, and, just the toxic environment that tends to fester on social media. But, every form of art has always had its critics. And so, in the forward to, I think it's like the 2022 or something version of Seat of the Soul, um, Maya is Angelou is in the forward talking about you can't practice any virtue without courage. And it made sense, and it just really clicked for me. All of that daring greatly, braving the wilderness, and courage. And you have to have courage to put yourself out there with your ideas and be ready for, I guess the backlash, or, but I don't think it's always a backlash. I was like, it's just negative thinking, right? Because there's a lot of good, and I have received a lot of good from when I was doing content. I met a lot of amazing people, had a lot of amazing conversations. So that's just where I am with it. And so I'm just going to get back out here and give it a go, because I really do enjoy talking to you guys. And it's not always about, I would say, the quantity, but the quality of the conversation. So that's kind of where I'm just going to go with it, looking to have those quality conversations. And on that note, I was just looking at a lot of the content surrounding this Keke Palmer thing, and I just noticed that we are always in this gender war cycle. And I was just thinking about, one of the reasons why I created this channel was to talk about starting over in your 40s and my whole journey of trying to grow spiritually, physically, mentally, professionally. And some of you know I finally left my job at a department for over 22 years, almost 22 years. So it was 21 years and 6 months. It would have been 22 years this year that I was working. And just the idea of not having to wear a gun and a duty belt to work anymore, it was scary. And it took a great deal of courage for me to step out there and try something new. And I have to say that I am happy, and I'm looking forward to sharing my journey with you guys and just talking about what we originally were supposed to be doing on this channel anyway, growing and ideas of propelling myself forward. And so just look for me to start putting out content like that, and to talk about this weight loss journey. And just, if this channel was supposed to be a lifestyle channel. And so I finally left that job, and I have been talking about doing that for like 6 years. And I think it's funny, I hadn't been really gotten into the physical part of it with my health, and I really want to focus on that this year, the rest of this year, and even with the conversation. So back again, I digress. But back to the point about the gender war part of these conversations, and even around this topic with Keke Palmer, right? I just see the standard basic discussion of, oh, this is what happens when you carry before you marry, they say marry before you carry. This is what happens when you date a dusty, and all just the basic things. And I just think that a lot gets lost for those of us who are trying to, figure out what does all this stuff mean. Just being a human being, just existing, and what lessons we gain from our relationships and our interactions. And I really thought it was that some of the lessons that I got out of it that were possible to me were about being double minded. And I find myself recently in a situation where I was double minded. So for him, I said the lesson, and for him, this young man could possibly be, and these are just ideas, right? Because I don't know these people. But the idea of a man trying to express the idea of wanting to be a traditional man, which I don't think that's what happened in this situation because of the way their situation is set up. From just impressions, right? Because again, I don't live there. We don't know their total situation, but I've seen the pictures of him on Instagram showing off her body, and then to come and say that, hey, why are you out showing your naked behind? You're a mom. But he didn't have a problem with showing it on his terms. So for me, the idea is maybe the lesson for him is that you can't straddle the fence. Either you're going to be traditional or you're going to be secular. And if you're going to be secular, then you're going to deal with things like this. And I would say the same for her. Are you going to be secular? And if so, does a man that is playing with the idea of being traditional fit into the lifestyle that you want to live? You know, everybody has to do everything publicly now. I do think that we really have gotten away from the idea of, when people talk about what went on in this house stays in this house, it was always from a toxic perspective when people talk about it because things were done to them that needed to be told outside of the house. Well, I'm not talking about an abuse situation. I'm talking about in a healthy relationship. What goes on in your relationship should stay within your relationship. I don't go around discussing my at-home business with my friends, family, or coworkers. What goes on between my husband and I stays between us. We have conversations about it. When I have a problem with him, I don't take it outside to somebody else. I take it to him. He took their business to the streets. And so my whole thing is there's a lesson in that. There's a lesson in the art of communication within a relationship. Because some of those discussions about traditionalism should have taken place within their relationship before they got to this point. I think a lot of times we like the way things look, or we like the way a person looks. We like the idea of this person, but we don't ever get into the whole dynamic of how, if we decide to come together, what do we want this to look like? Like that's something my husband and I did, and we do frequently. Like we check in on topics, like even this topic. If something is popping and pending, like we'll just say, well, what do you think about this? You really can learn a lot about the person and the people you're around just by having conversations about issues like this. And for me, if the go-to is always the gender war, for me, I know that is out of depth for me. That's not where I'm trying to go with things. I'm trying to go deeper into this experience and, figure out, well, why am I having this experience? And so I always hope that when you encounter things like this, the go-to shouldn't be a man versus woman perspective. It should be, why, okay, why did this happen? Why am I dealing with this right now? Like, I recently had an issue um, with a coworker, and I had to stop and ask myself, like, okay, why are you triggered? Why are you amplifying back that way? And when I worked my way through it, I had to realize that, oh, this isn't about her and what she did, even though I didn't like it, but this is really about me and my own internal stuff. And so I'm not going to just drag this on, but I just hope you get the point. But I did have a couple of scripture I wanted to just share with that, because when I talked about him being double-minded, I'm always reminded of James 1:8. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. So you have a man here that wants to straddle the fence of secularism versus traditionalism, and the two don't mesh. And so when you try to mash together two concepts that don't work, that clash, right? These are definitely lifestyle clashes. You have what you see on display here. Their not only their drama being played out on social media and all over the streets, you're unfollowing each other and arguing publicly. Nobody should have ever seen any of that interaction. But when you're unstable in all your ways, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get your business out there like that. And then we just got to go to Luke 16:13. No servant can serve two masters, for he will either hate one and love the other, or he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. And when I look at a lot of these people in these so-called celebrity spaces, you'll show up at an award show half naked, and then we'll see a picture of you the next day on a Sunday in church. If the church was about the Elohim of Israel, those two don't mix. There's going to be a clash. There's going to be a conflict, because the two lifestyles do not go hand in hand. We can pretend they do. We can try to flip the script, and we can edit and subtract things that we don't like, but you are always going to end up with a mess because you are trying to straddle the fence. And when you look at these people who are straddling the fence, and I know when I was straddling the fence, when I thought Christianity was the way for me, it literally was secularism and this Christianism trying to come together and form, I don't know what kind of mess we were doing, but none of it worked. It was all unstable because the foundation was shaky. And so this is what you see playing out here. So I would just say that just when you look at these situations, don't don't always go straight to the gender war. Don't always go straight to the just regular bubblegum stuff that we're getting right now, like dusties and people reckless with their wombs and hyenas. Like, we know all these talking points that people have to just basically shit on each other based on gender, based on race, black this. You just got to be bad, black, and wrong all day long, either side, and just get down to the nitty gritty of this is life. You are living a real life experience, not a virtual experience. Some of it may consist of a virtual reality, right? Because we do spend a lot of time online right now. But you're having a real human experience here. And if you don't start tapping in and going deeper into what's going on in your life and why these things are happening and what you have done to contribute to the dis-ease in your life, you're just going to keep finding yourself going around the same mountain and repeating the same circumstances over and over and over again. And this is something I can definitely attest to because it is literally something that I have experienced over and over again. So it is always my wish that someone, especially younger people, kind of learn from some of these things and don't repeat them. And my last point again, and I'm going to just tell you over and over, and I know people get tired of people saying communication, 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 but it is about communication, but not this surface level conversation. When I'm telling you that you have to have a conversation with your partner, your conversations are going to be the kind of conversations that are hard. And when I say hard, I mean it makes you uncomfortable, that you're not sure, and when you feel that discomfort and that insecurity and that, I don't know if I can say this, that's when you know you're on the right path because you are being vulnerable. That's when you can reach another level. Because if you don't ever expose your soft spots, if you're always hard and armored up, your partner is always going to be hard and armored up. There has to be a softening, there has to be an exposure. And if you are not in a place where you are safe and you can expose your throat to your partner, you are with the wrong person. If you can't expose the soft spots of your underbelly to your partner, you are in the wrong situation. That discomfort should lead to growth. That vulnerability should lead to growth and intimacy. Because, see, now that I know that I can get naked with you, you're going to get naked with me because it's safe. Create safe spaces in your home. If your home isn't a safe space, where else are you going to go? Because if it's not at home, the question is that home? And I'll leave you with that. Shalom.